Hello, there is something I need to tell you. I'll tell you a story. I'm afraid, but it's one you won't forget. This is the story of Marmalade Town, a quiet town, a secretive town, a town where one woman's death unraveled everything. Listen closely. I went there to investigate, but something happened. So don't be surprised if, when it's over, you feel like someone is still talking to you. The rain was steady when I arrived. It clung to the narrow streets like a curtain. The lamps flickered, casting halos that bent and swayed in the wind. Marmalade Town was not on most maps anymore. Too small, too forgotten. Which is odd, because it had the kind of presence you feel the moment you set foot there, like stepping into a room where everyone had been talking about you and then suddenly stopped. I felt the weight of eyes on me. The innkeeper greeted me. Her hands were wrinkled, trembling slightly, the way old paper does when you fold it too many times. She leaned close and whispered to me, as though afraid the walls themselves might overhear. She said to me, "Someone was killed." Her breath smelled faintly of peppermint and ash. Her voice cracked on the word killed. The victim was a woman named Ilara Vey, reclusive, middle-aged, a woman who spent more time writing letters she never mailed than speaking to her neighbors. She was found in her study, door locked from the inside, windows shut tight. Not a drop of blood, not a wound, only a chair turned over on its side, and the candle still burning. That detail sat wrong. Candles don't just stay alive out of politeness. Marmalade Town was small. Every face was familiar, every life an open book, or so it seemed. The first suspect I spoke to was the butcher, a heavy-set man with hands too red, too calloused. He said he had seen Ilara pacing in her study window near midnight. Her lips moved as if she were arguing with someone, but when he looked closer, she was alone. The school teacher, she was different. A sharp woman with eyes like glass. She claimed she heard laughter that night. Thin, cruel laughter that drifted down the street like smoke. When she stepped outside to investigate, There was no one, only the sound of her own shoes splashing in the rain. Then the widower. He spoke gently, almost too gently. But when Ilara's name crossed his lips, his jaw tightened. Years ago, he had asked her to marry him, but she refused. After that, he carried the bitterness in his chest like a hidden knife. And then the child, hair tangled, eyes too wide for her small face. She tugged at my coat and whispered to me. She said, "I saw him, the man in the black hat. He was outside my window watching." But no one else had seen such a man, and when I asked her to describe him, she only shook her head and said, "He does not like being seen," which is not what you want to hear from a child in a town like this. The more I searched Ilara's house, the stranger I felt. Her shelves sagged under the weight of journals. Every drawer groaned with unfinished letters. In one drawer, unlocked, I found the usual. Notes about groceries, scraps of poems, unfinished recipes. But deeper, hidden beneath a false bottom, was her personal journal. The pages were filled with frantic writing, lines that looped back on themselves, sentences scratched out so hard they tore the paper. She wrote of being followed, of shadows that lingered where they shouldn't, of whispers that echoed her own thoughts. And then one line, underlined 3 times. The killer does not need to break in. He's already inside. That should have been enough. But there was another drawer, locked tight, the metal cold, like it hadn't been touched in years. When I forced it open, I found letters, dozens of them, each sealed, each marked with a name. The butcher, the teacher, the widower, the innkeeper, and the child's parents. Each letter revealed a secret, shames, lies, sins, things Ilara should never have known. She had been watching them, writing them, trapping them on the page. And suddenly, every single one of them had a reason to silence her. But the candle, that stubborn flame haunted me. Candles die. That single flickering light in the room where she died. Candles burn down. They fade. They die. But this one had been alive when they found her, hours after her death. There was only one explanation. Someone had been there to relight it. The killer hadn't left. Not right away. Maybe even not at all. My pulse quickened, because as I pieced it together, I realized I wasn't just studying a crime, I was walking through it. The innkeeper watched me too closely. Her hands shook when she asked if I had found anything. The teacher's questions lingered too long. The widower smiled whenever I spoke of Ilara's loneliness. And then the child. She whispered to me once more, "He knows you know." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Because Ilara hadn't been killed for money, or love, or even revenge. She had been killed for knowing too much, for writing down the things that weren't meant to be spoken. And now, I was the one who knew too much. I felt it when the candle in my own room flickered. I felt it when the floor creaked, though no one walked. I felt it when I looked into the mirror and saw a shadow that wasn't my own. When I returned to her house, I searched again, and this time I saw it. The last page of her journal. The ink wasn't hers. The handwriting was sharper, different. It read, "The double candle burns for two. One must go out." It wasn't her paranoia. It wasn't her voice. It was a clue, a confession. I carried the page to the school teacher. Her eyes widened, but she denied it. The butcher swore it wasn't his handwriting. The widower trembled, swore his innocence. But the innkeeper, she didn't flinch. Her lips curved ever so slightly. "You were bound to find it," she said. "Ilara thought she was the only one who knew the town's secrets, but I knew hers while she was writing about everyone else. I was writing about her." Her voice grew steadier, stronger. "She wanted to own the story of this town, but I was the real storyteller. And when she discovered the truth, only one flame could remain." Ilara hadn't been killed with a knife or poison. She had been erased. Her story ended. Her candle snuffed, and the flame that survived was the innkeeper's. However, something gnawed at me. The child's words. The man in the black hat standing outside the window. So I asked the innkeeper, "What about him? The man the girl saw." Her smile widened, and in that moment, I understood. There never was a man. Children are easy to guide. Whisper a story enough times, and they begin to see it for themselves. The black hat was mine. She leaned closer, her voice low. It's easier to kill when the town fears a phantom. They all chase shadows forever, while the true sinner keeps writing the tale. And suddenly, everything fell into place. The laughter, the locked room, the flame that burned too long. The town had been chasing a ghost that never existed. The innkeeper wasn't just a murderer. She was a puppeteer. She killed Ilara and then crafted a phantom to hide behind. But then my stomach turned cold because as she spoke, I realized she wasn't just confessing. She was still writing. Her journal lay beneath the counter. My name, my description, every word I had spoken since I arrived. She wasn't telling me a story. She was writing mine. And at the bottom of the page, a final line waited for me. When she finally understands, the second candle will go out. I looked to the table. 2 candles burned there. One flickered, one steadied, and in that moment, I knew Ilara wasn't the last murder in Marmalade Town. I was. So now you know who killed her. You know why the candle burned. And you know how the story ends. Not with me, but with you, my partner. Because now you know too much. And in Marmalade Town, knowledge is the deadliest candle of all. And that's why I shouldn't have told you the story. Because now you know too much. And this town, knowing is enough to get you killed.